Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Today's date is April the 17th in the year of our Lord, 2024. And we're going to talk tonight, of course, all things politics. Here to solve, nothing else, nothing more, nothing less. That is our anticipated goal. That's what we're always striving for here. Lively debate on anything from Middle Eastern policy to energy policy to foreign policy to women's rights, all things politics, because democracy itself is at stake. You know, our freedoms of choice. The First Amendment is under attack. And so here we are, as I said, in the year of our Lord, 2024, with a wholehearted, sincere attempt to solve American political gridlock on Capitol Hill. Now, of course, you know, we're staunchly Democrat here at Soluble. We make no bones about it. You know, we make no apologies about it. But at the end of the day, when the chips fall, when the dust settles, if you will, and we just happen to have a Republican president who's won the Oval Office, you know, as a country, we've historically rallied behind the president, regardless of his political affiliation, once all the dust settles. You know, historically, traditionally, we've came back together as Americans and, you know, tried to decide what's best to move the country forward with whatever majority or minority we may have, you know, knowing that it's 2/3 majority to move legislation into law here in the United States of America. Now, the Democratic Party, you know, we need to be aggressive, stay aggressive, be even more aggressive, especially on messaging, especially on messaging. Now, we have the president, he's listening. He's listening, albeit stubbornly. Now, I'm going to start out by saying, you know, as it relates to America's relationship with Israel and that policy, it is, you know, not solely a President Joseph R. Biden policy. It's America's position, you know, regardless of which political party is in office. It's been America's position traditionally to back Israel. But what we have now is we have the power to change it. You know, and that's the good thing about America. We can change policy position. We can change long-standing traditional policy position. You see these young college kids out here now, you know, they're energized, you know, they've taken a passionate stance, you know, for Palestine, and rightfully so. You know, we see women and children suffering in war. We see war crimes being committed. And so, you know, there's nothing like getting more and more politically active, not just with the Middle East, but, you know, all the problems that we're dealing with in the world today, you know, moving forward. Now, the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking. And, you know, sadly, unexplainably, we're dealing with the same, you know, make America great again threat that we voted out of office, you know, here almost 4 years ago. And, you know, this is the Republican Party's guy. You know, here's a party that lacks courage to speak out on, you know, anything that's unrecognizable as it relates to a Ronald Reagan Republican. They've had the debates. The former President Trump, failed to show up at any of them. But yet here we are on this day's date with, you know, the former president being the nominee of the Republican Party. And so the threat to democracy still looms. And we have a job to do. Now, I mean, what you see is what you get. And we see what we're dealing with now with a slim Republican majority in the House, a slim Republican majority. And we've stated here at Soluble before the midterms of 2022, we stated here that, any majorities that the Republicans won during the midterms, there would be, more investigation and little to no legislation. And so here we are. Here we are. It's not a magic wand. It just takes, one being observant as to what's going on. I mean, sadly, the party has lost its way with the emergence of former President Trump, as a leader of the party. It's lost its moral compass. It did have, a compass that pointed in one direction that you could, depend on, that you could lean on, that, that was the route that the Republican Party was going. But now with the emergence of former President Trump taking over the party, the moral compass spins. The former president is selling sneakers. He's selling Bibles. And what we truly have to understand as Democratic voters and common sense independents and Republicans is that, the former president will sell the country out. He'll sell the country out. Here's the former president who, as I said, is going so low as to, sell God's holy word in the form of the Holy Bible at this time of the year. Now, when it comes to Sunday Mass around Easter Sunday, where's the president? Where's the president holding service at? Where is he attending religious worship services? Nothing can be more hypocritical and blasphemous. And so, as Democrats and common sense independents, and what common sense Republicans will rally for the cause. I know some of them would rather vote for Popeye the Sailor Man than they cast a vote for Joe Biden. But democracy is at stake here. And this is what, one bad apple not being removed from the whole bunch will do. We have a majority, a slim majority with the Republicans in the House. Democrats are waiting. They're ready to govern. They're ready to pass common sense legislation. And where are we? Where are we? Now we're dealing with another threatened ouster of Speaker Johnson. Congresswoman Green is threatened to oust him for, what apparent reason she's not giving yet. Other than to say that he's cooperating with Democrats. And this should be the scary part to us as Democrats, to know why, to see why we have to show up at the polls. What the Congresswoman doesn't understand is that Democrats have the majority on Capitol Hill right now. And you're gonna have to go along with Democrats, even though you have this very slim majority in the House. You're going to have to cooperate with Democrats in order to get legislation passed, in order to get things done. The Congresswoman doesn't see that. Here she is, threatening to oust her. And, it seems to be slowly but surely gaining momentum. It slowly but surely seems to be gaining steam because a representative from Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken, Representative Massey, seems to be wanting to join in, in this ouster of Speaker Johnson. But as I've said, this should be alarming. And it speaks volumes to the Congresswoman's lack of understanding of how she has to have a 2/3 majority to get legislation passed. The Speaker is doing his job. The Speaker of the House is doing his job to the best of his ability. And here you have Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. She doesn't have a clue. Members of her own party say she's grandstanding. She's doing these things for attention. But nevertheless, we haven't seen anything such as this type of a circus on Capitol Hill. since the emergence of former President Trump. And as I've said, and I'll say it over and over again, this is what it looks like when one bad apple is not removed from the bunch. Besides the ouster that's going on, you had articles of impeachment, for Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas. Now, usually articles of impeachment have been put into the Constitution and installed there by the framers, if you will, for high crimes and misdemeanors. And that's it. High crimes and misdemeanors. No evidence of a high crime. No evidence of a misdemeanor on behalf of Secretary Mayorkas. And our Republican colleagues are using, articles of impeachment, like some political football that they could just kick around with no regard for, where the ball will land. And it's a sad day in America when, we have what should be a no-brainer to my fellow Democrats and to all of America, frankly. We have what should be a no-brainer. And if we're not careful, it's going to turn into a nail biter. Now, picture that. We did our due diligence here in the year 2020 when the former president was up for re-election. And, it was up to the American people to make America great again another 4 years. And we made a decision. By all accounts, it was a good decision because democracy, as we know it, still functions. You have the former president who he wants to lead a country whose systems of checks and balances and laws he have very little respect for, unless he's in office. This is how dictatorships begin. He attacks the First Amendment. He attacks your freedom of speech. He attacks the press. And, the former president wants the American people to believe no one but him, regardless of what the evidence says. And so, we have some serious work to do. Now, here's Sergeant, but we're going to break it down issue by issue. We have, although the clock is ticking, we have time on our side between now and November. And we're going to make the case, whether it comes to dealing with the situation in the Middle East, Ukraine, China, Taiwan. As I said, women's rights, energy policy, climate change, entitlements. And more than ever, what we have to understand as Democrats is that, the Supreme Court hangs in the balance. This is where the law of the land stops. This is how Roe v. Wade got overturned. It's at stake. It hangs in the balance. Now, we've stated here before at Soluble that you have some of these right-wing justices who are going to be ready to step down in an instant if the former President Trump is reinstated into the Oval Office. And so, it's something serious to think about here. Democracy itself is under attack. When have we seen ever in American history where, you have a former president in the Republican Party that from day one of his time in office, he had to constantly have lawyers on his payroll. Constantly had to have lawyers, at the top of his call Rolodex. Over, and these lawyers, they were more important than the issues facing the American people and America itself. How do you go back? How do you go back? And so, we have to hold the line here. We have a 90+ percentile of African American voters who, when they show up and vote Democrat, we control the balances of power. So why go back? What's changed? What's different? The former president is still stoking racial animosity. The former president is still using racist undertones. The former president is still prone to lie. And so what's new? This is not new. You know, the former president hasn't even come out and said, this is new, improved, make America great again. He just has the same old thing, make America great again. So here we are, America. Now, you know, we can go forward with 4 more years of President Biden, who is, by all accounts, keeping America humming along. You know, like the little engine that could, America goes forward, slowly but surely. You know, after a pandemic, you know, inflation kicked in. You know, because we were dealing with supply chain issues, and we stated here at Soluble that, you know, climate change, so-called climate change, which is what scientists have labeled it, you know, we can't put a political affiliation with it. We can't put this on Democrats or Republicans. You know, we're dealing with this as a collective worldwide. And my point is that, you know, it's going to affect grocery prices. It may affect automobile prices. You know, the mighty Mississippi is shrinking. And you can't put a political affiliation on it. But just like the little engine that could, you know, President Biden is moving the country forward, you know, albeit slow, you know, albeit gradual, we're going forward. If we take a step back, we're taking 2 steps forward in dealing with, you know, the current crises that we're dealing with all around the world. Wars, rumors of wars, you know, famines, you know, starvation, you know, just all the problems that are going on around the world. America still leads. So once again, you know, we pose the question here at Soluble. Go back, you know, for what? To what? As a dog returns to his vomit, or as the sow that's been washed clean returns to wallowing in the mire. What else do we have? We've seen it. We've seen it all before. And, you know, we're dealing with years here, you know. We're dealing with 4 years removed. And we see the former president out on the campaign trail at his rallies. You know, he's struggling. He's struggling. He needs to be propped up verbally. You know, he's rambling. He's not discussing, you know, what he's going to do to actually make America great again. The devil is in the details, but we don't see it. We don't see it. So, you know, we have to understand that what you see is actually what you get. And this is a textbook case of where, you know, if someone tells you who they are or shows you who they are, believe them. Believe them. And to the 90 plus percentile of African American voters, this should be a no-brainer to you. This should be a no-brainer. What do you got? What answers do the former president have to your problems? You know, you see here a couple of weeks back, you see the former president in New York City. You know, a cop has been killed on duty, and you see the former president, you know, at the request of the family, coming to New York to pay his respects. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. We don't begrudge that. But, you know, to that 90-something plus percentile of African American voters, you know, during this same time period, or right before this was headline news of the cop being killed in New York City. We were dealing with, the sentencing of the goon squad. Does that not, help make America great again? Can to this 90-something plus percentile of African American voters who think that, they're going to be better off under former president's a new Trump administration, an administration of actors, by the way. What is the former president's position here? He doesn't show up on behalf of these two young men who have been unjustifiably attacked by the police, who are sworn to serve and protect. The former president's a no-show. Now, he shows up in New York City and makes the statement, and rightfully so, that things are a mess, with crime or what have you. We're not going to argue there. We can do a lot better when it comes to crime. But what about the goon squad also? What about police brutality when it comes to so-called minorities or any American citizen? These men have been brutalized, sodomized, shot in the mouth. All because someone called and said, they were in a house that may or may not have been occupied by, a Caucasian female. But the former president's a no-show. So what do you have? To this 90-something plus percentile of African American voters, that's the question that we're posing to you tonight here at Soluble. What do you have in that situation? The former president's a no-show when it comes to the headlines about the goon squad. He's a no-show for these two individuals. But there's a police officer killed, and the former president is there, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. He's for some police officers and not others. For city or state police officers, but not federal police officers. Not police officers on Capitol Hill. Rest in peace, Officer Zitnick, by the way. He was a Trump voter in 2016. Can you imagine this? Former Capitol Hill police officer Brian Zitnick was a Trump voter in 2016. He voted for the former president. And this is what happens when he's killed. Trying to suppress a riot that the former president has incited. It's all smoke and mirrors. And, here's what we have from a Republican majority. Common sense border legislation, they shoot it down. It's not a good thing because, it doesn't have former President Trump's name attached to it. Are you kidding me? This is the only reason? This, should signify to all Democrats, common sense, independents and Republicans, that the former president is desperate. This should, be a clear indicator of how desperate the former president and his supporters are. He has nothing better. He has nothing better, or else he wouldn't interfere with sound immigration policy. He would let it go through, and at the same time campaign to show that he can one up. After all, this guy's Sleepy Joe. This is Sleepy Joe Biden. Sleep at the wheel, slow on the draw. A gaff machine. He can't stay woke without, some type of no-dose or something. He's stumbling, bumbling, and fumbling to the point where he should be in a mental institution. This is Sleepy Joe. But the former president cannot come out and one up what to him is a sleepy, fumbling, sleepy Joe Biden. He cannot come out and one up him on immigration. And it hurts the country. It hurts the country. So, as I've stated here, it's soluble. The clock is ticking. The clock is ticking. November is right around the corner. We need to look no. We see the jobs report. We see what the GDP looks like. We listen to what the Feds is telling us. As it relates to interest rates and where the power of the dollar lies and how strong the dollar is, doing everything it takes to keep it strong. The job numbers are great. Gas prices are being managed. And the president is doing everything that he can to deal with high prices at the grocery store. But as I said, this is definitely a supply and demand type issue. And with climate change altering crops, with floods, drought, heat waves, the president can only do so much. He can only do so much there to try to curb greenhouse emissions that are going into the atmosphere. So, what are you going back for? What are you looking back for? What does MAGA have for you now that you didn't get 4 years ago? What's new and improved? What's new and improved? This is, the question that we should be asking ourselves now. The prevailing narrative that is coming out of right-wing talking circles is that, President Biden is too old. He won't make it, for 4 years. Well, we have a vice president. The system works. We have a vice president who's ready and willing, capable to back the president up should something happen where he's not able to finish out his next 4-year term. But Democrats, we have to control those talking points. We have to go on the offensive now, and not just because there's election coming in November. We have to go on the offensive and stay on the offensive for the sake of defending democracy, for the sake of world peace, for the sake of common sense legislation that helps everyone, man, woman, and child. It helps everyone, not just a select few. And, we're confident here at Soluble that if we can hold the line, if we can hold that 90-something plus percentile threshold, that, we can give President Biden another 4 years. The world is a safer place, without the former President Trump in the Oval Office. It's just that plain and simple. And it's pretty much, come down to, can the Republican Party, excuse me, can the Republican Party have a change in ideology? The world is not as racist as it once used to be. The world is not as narrow-minded a place as it once used to be. And we're slowly but surely, as a country drifting towards, may the best man win. And that's always worked great for America. It's always worked great. Here we are, with one term from President Biden almost complete. And America's still a safe, strong, functioning democracy. A system of checks and balances that works. Can you imagine, just for a minute, the former president regaining power, and then all of a sudden, evidence doesn't matter? Our legal system has been one that is highly regarded all around the world. Being judged by a jury of your peers based on the evidence. And and being convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. It has always worked. It has always worked. And even that right now is under attack because you have a former president who, by all accounts from him, loves his country, but yet he won't make a sacrifice for it. Does the former president think that he's great for democracy? Then let him lay it all out in a debate for all the American people to see. But here we are. With one term nearly complete of a Democrat in the Oval Office, and what slim majority that the Republicans have had for the last 2 years. They've squandered opportunity after opportunity to get things done. To show to the American people that they're ready to lead, that they're ready to move past a time in history that was MAGA, you know, a ideal that failed, a failed ideology, simply because it doesn't include all. And that's what America's been about since its founding. We're a nation of immigrants. That's what it's been about since its founding. Now, we should, of these two candidates, we should be looking, at this critical juncture in America, we should be looking for the smartest guy in the room. We should be looking for the smartest guy in the room here. And, buyer beware, voter beware. It seems from our observation point that, the more the Republicans are criticizing President Biden's, his speech, or he's forgetting, or he's stumbling, the more their guys doing more of the same. The smartest guy in the room. That should be our aim and purpose at this critical juncture. You have, by all accounts from, Republican office holders, Republican lawmakers that some in their party are echoing Russian propaganda. This is a new low, not for America, but for a party. This is a new low. We have a country that stands for freedom and democracy. And we have lawmakers who are echoing talking points of a rogue dictator, authoritarian, who believes in anything but. It's a very dangerous time. It's a very dangerous time. World peace, world harmony, the growth of America, a strong America is going to be an America that, embraces humanity, regardless of racial background, racial makeup, regardless of geographic location. A strong America going forward is going to be, that America that is led by a leader who embraces humanity. And this should be the will of the people. Now, we hear the former president, and we know that, people all across America are very displeased with what's going on in the Middle East. Our position here at Soluble is that we 100% agree. Here we have, a country that's being propped up by America and Great Britain, in the 1940s. And we're prepared to say that, Germany was wrong. Most certainly wrong for what they did to the Jews. But now the Jewish people are not wrong for what they're doing to the Palestinians. Nothing could be more absurd. Nothing could be more absurd. And after some, what, almost 50, 60 years or so, you still hear the Palestinian people use the word occupier, and that their lands are being occupied. This is not something that one would cling to falsely for after so many years. And so, we understand that there are a lot of disgruntled, upset Americans as it relates to America's policy in the Middle East. And make no mistake about it, that's just what it is. It's not a President Biden policy. This is an American policy. And voices are being heard. It's good that the American people, the electorate, the voters are getting involved. It's democracy at work. And you see, slowly but surely, you see President Biden shifting his position. Now, what are you getting from the other side? What are you getting from the leader from the other side? It is what it is. It is what it is. You have the former president making a statement that, Israel needs to just finish it, get it over with. What is the former president saying? Kill up an equal amount of women and children again? Go another round of doing the same type slaughter? And in hopes that the Palestinian people will throw up their hands and surrender? But make no mistake about it, to the American voter, this is the former president's statements. This is not soluble, making something up. Taking a statement that we've got from QAnon or some, right-wing and or left-wing media outlet. This is the former president's own words, that Israel needs to just finish it. How? This is Ariel Sharon all over again, and nothing is finished. Because the Palestinian people are steadfastly clinging to the hope and belief that they will, be resettled on their lands once again after, a long, hard-fought struggle, suffering, death. Now, opposition here is not that Israel should be attacked. We think that a two-state solution should be put on the table, demands be made, on behalf of the United States of America, that the two parties, the two nations come together in agreement as Arabs and Jewish, that, find some type of a settlement here for a two-state solution. But make no mistake about it, especially to our young voters out here, this is the former president's view on the whole situation, that Israel needs to just finish it. That says a lot, as it relates to lacking empathy or understanding for the Palestinian people and their position, to their long-held belief. It seems to be cold and caring towards, the Palestinian people. So, where's the lesser of two evils here? Which one of these men is more than likely to, look at that moral arc of the universe and make sure that it bends towards justice on behalf of the Palestinian people and the suffering that they've endured? This is, the former president's position on the Middle East. And it demands further debate. But make no mistake about it, to, that 90-something plus percentile of Democrat voters, to, college kids all across American campuses. Common sense independence. This is an American long-held position since the founding and or establishment, if you will, of this so-called country, Israel. This has been America's position. Now, our position here is soluble. The question that we're posing is, you know, of the two men that are vying for power, you know, to lead America forward for the next 4 years, you know, it begs a simple question: which one is likely to be more understanding of what's going on in the region, and you know, can put his foot down in a way that first and foremost, you know, causes less bloodshed, calms the situation rather than stirs the pot. It should be a no-brainer. You know, the choices that we have for president of the United States of America. It should be a no-brainer. If the former president, you know, is the smartest guy in the room, as he likes to claim, you know, he wouldn't have legal threats for, you know, places of, for institutions of higher learning that he's attended, you know, who are wanting to release his grades, who are wanting to release his grade transcripts. If he's the smartest guy in the room, and that's what this time is calling for. This comes down to, you know, who do we as Americans trust to hold the codes to America's nuclear arsenal? We have a former president who is running to stay out of prison. First and foremost. And you know, this is something that sounds like it is coming out of the nonfiction section of your local public library. But this is actually happening. This is the clear and present danger that we're dealing with. You know, you have notable Republicans. You know, Congresswoman Cheney, former Congresswoman Cheney, a staunch conservative, comes from a family of staunch conservatives. She won't back him. What is it to say about a former president who is running to hold office again, and his own former VP won't endorse him? His own former VP can't bring himself, and you know, by all accounts, the former former Vice President Pence has done, you know, a great job of trying his best to defend the former president. But even he seems to be saying now that enough is enough. Enough is enough. If that's not convincing enough to not change so much as change Republican minds, but to energize Democrats and common sense Republicans, common sense independents, you know, to go to the voting booth in November. What more do you need? You have a former vice president, you know, someone who's sworn to have your backing, to be able to vouch for you. Has this ever happened? You know, we're using the word unprecedented so much nowadays. You know, to the point where we would seriously, you know, be taking a fall from grace as a country if, you know, we went from these things adding up so much, so many occurrences and so many happenings that are unprecedented, till we now, you know, just start looking at it as the new precedent, the new precedent, the new normal, or the new abnormal, depending on, you know, what point of view you're looking at things from. So here we have it, you know, two parties. We're a country with a two-party system. You know, you see RFK coming out somewhere out of no labels or what have you, Um, but we have here a two-party system. You know, the main driving forces in American politics, and up to this point, it's worked. You know, up to this point, it's worked. The Republican Party has lost its way. That is our position here at Soluble, simply because they refuse to change. With a changing demographic of American voters, they refuse to change. Even now, in the face of this Dodd decision, energizing women at the polls, you see states like Arizona doubling down. So it's not about the will of the people. And it's like, if we don't show up at the polls, or are we going to, by not showing up, by not getting our vote turnout, be involuntary contributors to going from a democracy to an autocracy? It's very much likely, because by all accounts, if the former president regains power in the Oval Office, it's going to be a revenge tour. Meanwhile, if that were to happen, now, we have American adversaries who want to take our spot as number one, seeing a former president sleep at the wheel. See a former president who's retaken the Oval Office, and now he's asleep at the wheel. It's very possible that China pounced with COVID in 2019, in the year 2019, going into 2020. It's very possible that China pounced, and infiltrated America with this COVID-19. And if you recall, the former president had a cabinet that was full of actors. Some positions were vacant. And so, what are the capabilities? What is the likelihood that we would see something different from the former president? Our position here at Soluble is that if the former president prevails, then it's not for the good of America. It's for the tearing down, if you will, of a system that, when fairly applied, when applied according to what's written and printed on paper, is a great system. When it's applied according to how it has been written up, it's a great system. All under threat now. All under threat by a former president who, as we've stated here at Soluble over and over again, by all accounts, loves this country. But he doesn't have respect for it the way it's set up and ran right now as it is. You have the former president saying that this is the Biden trial. Excuse me, sir. There's evidence. There's evidence that exists that might show that you paid hush money. There's evidence that exists that you might be guilty of committing wire fraud, knowingly or unknowingly. And the former president knows this. But instead of respecting the system, he attacks it in light of the evidence. In spite of the evidence, this is the Biden trial. And any common sense red-blooded American knows that, or should know that, President Biden doesn't have that type of power. This is dictatorship 101 type thing, where the leader of a country can bring charges, trumped up charges, no pun intended, bring trumped up charges against a former president or a former leader just because he doesn't want him in power. America's never worked like that before. But if you're listening to the former president, you can easily be had. You can easily be misled because he'll seem to say anything to get himself off the hook. The Midas touch anything but. We know that when he was dealing in real estate, he was cooking the books, inflating the numbers, deflating the numbers, whatever worked to his own advantage. Look at it all. Paul Manafort, Steve Bannon, Rudy Giuliani, Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, Peter Navarro, all the president's men. They're in legal jeopardy. They're going broke. They're losing credibility. All as sacrificial lambs for the former president. Who does that? Who does that? I'm in power. I have people all around me who are loyal to me. What does it say about me as a person or as a leader when, I want all these people who are loyal to me, devoted, with feelings of admiration to constantly take the fall? Be my fall guy. Go to jail for me. Lose your successful business for me. Lose your reputation. You lose your outstanding reputation for me. And, next up on the former president's list of sacrificial lambs, if he prevails in this election in November, Democrats, make no mistake about it. Next up on the former president list of sacrificial lambs is American democracy as we know it. Is American democracy as we know it. This is an empty vessel. This is a party that has lost its way. Now, as Democrats, we have to be aggressive with our messaging. We have to take, the mission, take our agenda, our goals forcefully to the American people and let it fall on the court of public opinion. We have a former president and a party who is, they're making forceful statements that have no evidentiary value. There's nothing to back them up. Now, this makes the system great. This makes the system whole. When I say whole, mean whole strong, whole together. Now, what are they doing? They're steady trying to chip away at it. A country that they love, by all accounts from themselves, the greatest country on earth in the history of mankind. But they're steady trying to chip away at the system of checks and balances that we have in place. They're trying to chip away at it. They're attacking it. All because, they want power. The power to do what? We have a party that is backing a former president whose strong suits are, attacking the border, threatening to close the border, attacking immigrants, and smoozing with dictators. Those are his strong suits. All very counterproductive to, what America needs. All very counterproductive to what fuels America and keeps America going. A former president who attacks the border, attacks immigrants, and we're a nation of immigrants, and smoozes with dictators. Those are his two strong suits. Those are his two strong suits. And so there's common sense legislation that comes out to strengthen the border, to stem the flow of illegal immigration. And the former president wants it shut down because that's all he has. It's tough talk on the border. If President Biden gets legislation on his desk and signs it into law, then what does he tell his followers on the campaign trail? What does he tell them now? So, the former president is very one-directional. It seems that if he has nothing in his quiver of arrows that he's willing to shoot out and protect America with, except border politics. And he doesn't understand the extent of the problem. He wants to stop all immigration. He shouts about illegal immigration, but yet he has illegal immigrants, undocumented workers working at Mar-a-Lago. How hypocritical. So, we're encouraging Democrats, we're singling out, we're specifying to that 90-something plus percentile of African-American voters. You've reached this moment because of those who have came before you and spoke truth to power. You've reached this moment, so why go back? Why take your foot off the gas now? Yes, the finish line is in sight, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So, this is about, the sacrifices of those who have come before us, championing the things that strengthen America, trying to point out America's ideals as it has been stated on paper, to bring it off the paper and bring it into everyday human life. And so here we are. Here we are on the threshold of democracy teeter-tottering one way or another in a way that we've never seen before. We've seen it teeter-totter between liberal and conservative, Democrat and Republican. We've seen that sway, that switch, that back and forth. But as President Biden has said, these are not your grandfather's Republicans. These Republicans of today in the Republican Party here, this is not your grandfather's Republican Party. It's something that seems to be morphed out of, between communist Russia and dictator like Xi Jinping. And they don't have a clue. Well, they do, but they can't seem to rally together. To get lawmakers like Marjorie Taylor Greene to understand that, you have to reach across the aisles in order to get things done in Washington, D.C. She doesn't understand it, because she's not trying to understand it. She's proud to be walking in the footsteps of former President Donald J. Trump. She's proud to be a MAGA queen. You've seen her on the video. These guys have made a rap video about her. She doesn't have a clue. And we're dealing with everyday lives here. We're dealing with democracy as we know it being threatened with a new abnormal. Here we are, as a country. We're not even at the quarter of a millennium mark. We're heading into 248 years of being in existence as a country. And democracy as we know it is threatened more than ever by a former president, wannabe tough guy, who's, never, by all accounts, like America's former tough guys, just say like somebody pull a name out of thin air, or somebody like the late Senator McCain, a tough guy who really went off and fought in the war. This is the standard that we've always measured a tough guy by. Where has the former president served? He squirmed out of his Vietnam service, unlike the late great Senator McCain. He squirmed out. He had bone spurs. He had them then, but what? He's fine now. But you know, not to go too deep there. You get my point. You know, we don't need a president who talks tough. But when the rubber meets the road, he starts to point the finger of blame. Now, as I've stated, we're going to break down and get into, the nuts and bolts of all things that are on the ballot going into the November election, going into the summer and leading into the fall election. We're going to break it all down. We're going to make the case for Republicans against Republicans. We're going to make the case for Democrats and against Democrats. And, hopefully we can come to a place of bipartisanship that we haven't seen in Washington, D.C. in a long time. That's the goal here at Soluble, is to solve, partisan gridlock, bickering, finger pointing, or what have you. And one of the best things that we can do as a first step, if you will, in order to achieve that goal is to show up in November and largely vote Democrat. Of the two parties now, it seems to be, the one party that is still willing to support the Constitution, willing to follow the framers' founding documents still, and let it be a beacon of light that leads America. Of the two parties. So the clock is ticking, and we have decisions to make, America. In the Republican corner, with little to no experience, doesn't seem to have a clue. We have former President Donald J. Trump. In the Democratic corner, he's aged. He's well aged, like fine wine, but very intellectual, very wise, and willing to do whatever it takes to see America win. We have the current president, Joseph R. Biden. Does he always get it right? No. Does he know? Does he have all answers that America needs going forward? No. But he's willing to listen, and this is what makes him the exceptional of the two candidates. And so, going forward, we look forward to discussing all things politics continually. To give you an open mind, to stir up ideas, thoughts on, what's best for the country going forward. Because this is what should matter more than anything. Not what, your country can do for you. In the words of the great John F. Kennedy. That's not what your country can do for you. That's what you can do for your country. And here you have a former president that, is doing anything but. Is doing anything but. So we'll, continue to pay attention to. Right now, the former president is in court for a hush money trial, money laundering, wire fraud, or what have you. We'll see what evidence that, the prosecutors have and what rebuttal that the defense has. We're 7 people in to seating a 12-man jury, scheduled up to testify: Michael Cohen, Stormy Daniels, and McDougal, Miss McDougal, or Karen McDougal, if we're not mistaken. And so we're paying close attention, to the trials, to the current legislation that they're trying to bring to the floor, and we'll break it all down for the American people, you know, and we'll make a decision there going into November, you know, um, as to which party is best prepared, willing to lead America by listening to the voices of the people. We thank you for joining us tonight here at Soluble. We hope we've been enlightening, um, with thought, with debate, and it's all about ending gridlock, ending bipartisanship. Getting politicians to reach across the aisles once again, exposing lies, hypocrisy, corruption, wherever it may be, in Democrat or Republican circles. So we thank you for joining us here tonight. We look forward to more lively debate with the American public going into the elections of 2024 in November, and trying to make the best decision that keeps democracy thriving for the next 50 to 100 years, be it God's will. So until we meet again, this is Soluble signing out, saying thank you for joining us tonight. Um, this is Soluble signing out. Good night and God bless. Thank you.